Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we will celebrate one of my students. His name is Ari, and he recently became very serious about chess, and he gained about 400 rating points in the past two chess tournaments. And we're going to look at a game which he played. He played against someone rated about 1000 USCF, which is not the highest rating ever, but it's still pretty good. And we will learn from some of the instructive mistakes made in this game. Ari starts by playing e4. His opponent plays d6, which is the Pirc, or the Pirc, named after Vasse Pirc, who was a very strong player in Europe in the 20th century. Pawn d4. Ari takes the center, controls these four squares. Very reasonable. His opponent plays knight f6, the main move of the Pirc, attacking the pawn. There are several ways to deal with this. Ari deals with this in a very simple fashion. He defends with the knight, and black plays g6, which makes perfect sense. This bishop will fianchetto. He cannot come this way, so he will end up on this square. Ari continues with solid development. Knight f3. He has two pawns controlling the center. He has two knights playing chess. Makes perfect sense. Black continues with his plan, bishop g7. And Ari decides to bring out the bishop to c4, which is not a terrible move. One thing you need to consider always in these situations is a move like knight takes c4. Sometimes center fork tricks are quite useful. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. If black tries to do this right now, it's not terrible for black, but Ari can take first, and the point is black now cannot castle, and white has somewhat decent piece development. Okay, black maybe did not know that this was possible. Again, this is a key idea which you need to know whenever you do stuff like this. I will show you another example. Let's pretend in the world of e4, e5, knight 3, knight c6. If white plays knight c3, black needs to be careful playing a move like bishop c5, because again, center fork trick becomes possible. And similarly, if we go in this position, if black plays knight f6, it is white who needs to be careful playing a move like this, because now black is the one who gets to execute the center fork trick. I apologize about my cough. I've been sick for a while. I'm okay now, but the cough is still there. That's why I have not posted in a while. Fascinating. Anyway, back to Ari's game, bishop c4. Black decided to castle. Ari castle, which makes sense. Here black, as you can see by looking at the suggestions again, can execute the center fork trick. He decided to play rook e8 instead, which is not great. And the reason it's not great is, yes, it supports e5, but a lot of the time, a lot of the time, in the Pirc and similar openings, white has this idea of e5, e6. And Ari can already do this. He ended up doing this a little bit later. To demonstrate, by the way, why it's so good now, let's say we play e5, attacking this knight. Let's pretend black takes. We can take back. Again, notice the knight is being attacked. Let's say black trades queens, so takes. And now, the problem with the knight is, what do you do with it? If you go to h5, this is important. If you put a knight on the side of the board, you have to make sure he doesn't get trapped here. So knight here, we can try h3, g4. By the way, notice g4 doesn't work right away because of this. But there is another very strong idea, knight d5, attacking this pawn. And the problem is black cannot defend it, because this bishop is just going to take the knight. Okay, what else can he do? Knight g4, again, similar idea, knight z5. And black is in trouble. Let's pretend black avoids a queen trade. Let's pretend he tries moving the knight right away. Let's say knight g4. Now we have a very nice move, knight g5, improving our knight. We double attack the pawn. And another idea which we can do next is pawn e6. For example, let's pretend black brings the rook back to defend this pawn. Now we play pawn e6. This is a very nice pawn. We are triple attacking. If black saves the pawn, let's say pawn f5, now we have this very nice knight. You can't really do too much about it. Material is even, but we have this powerful pawn supporting this amazing knight on f7. Something similar will happen in the game, just a little bit worse. Ari did not play e5, which is understandable. He just continued his development. He played bishop f4, getting all his pieces into the game. And now black made matters worse. Black played knight d7, which is a move you normally want to play in these positions, because you're supporting e5 with c5. But in this position, it doesn't work for a lot of reasons. One of them, and again, this is something you need to be careful about. In fact, I had a game with someone earlier today where something very similar happened around move 4. This sacrifice, followed by knight here, I will actually show you that game in a second. But this is something quite useful to keep in mind. So bishop here, the point is the point is if king takes, we have knight g5. And the point is the knight is simply going to trap the queen. This sacrifice is quite useful to remember. I replayed d5 right away here. Because he had space, so he decided to push things through. Black took. Ari took back, attacking the knight. Again, the knight needs to be careful where he goes. There are not that many squares available, essentially there are those two. And black chose the wrong one. Black chose knight, knight g4, knight h5 is a little better. But then again, we've seen this idea before, just ramming things through. In the game, black played knight g4, which makes things even worse. Again, in this position, Ari can sacrifice the bishop and bring the knight and cause devastation. He played pawn e6 instead, which is also incredibly powerful. Attacking the pawn, attacking the knight. If the pawn falls, there is a fork. Black decided to take. Ari takes back. Now there is a fork on the king and the knight. The king has to move. Ari takes the knight. It's already winning, but it's still instructive to see how Ari converts. Black decided to take the knight. Yes, it does damage the pawns, but much worse for black is his king loses a very important defender. This is not a move you want to play if you're playing chess. But black took. Ari took back. The king is just completely open right now. Black tried to introduce the rook into defense, but Ari simply brings the queen in with check. You don't want to block, you will just get attacked. So black play king g8. Knight f6 is probably the best move, and white is just up a piece. King g8 is just bad. Because now Ari can bring in another piece with tempo. And after rook f7, Ari plays a very smart move. He could take right away, which Starfish actually prefers. But Ari realizes the rook is not going anywhere, so let's attack it again. It's now pinned and double attacked. So, knight g5. Black attacks the queen, but Ari says my threats are better than your threats. So he takes the rook. And then checkmate. The two important lessons from this game that I wanted to remember. One, remember the center fork trick. Whenever you play a move like this, be careful. Sometimes this move ends up being quite powerful for black. And the second thing to remember in the structures, in the Pirc, in the modern, you need to be careful when you play a move like knight d7. So after bishop f4, knight d7, just blocking this, giving the knight this square. There is a full move way to win in a similar case. I'll show you e4, d6. Let's say d4. Let's say g6. Let's say knight f3. Let's say bishop g7. Let's say bishop c4. And let's give black this move again, knight d7. So if you notice, again, this is blocked. And again, keep this idea in mind. Ironically, this happened twice on the highest level. And ironically, black actually did not lose both of those games. So takes, if takes, we play knight here. If king e8, we trap the queen. If king f8, we fork. If king f6, we checkmate. So keep this idea in mind. It's quite useful. To Ari, again, very, very impressed with what you accomplished. I can't wait to see what you will continue to accomplish as you keep playing chess more and more. Everyone else, hope you enjoyed this, and I will be back soon. Thank you.